Hi, welcome back to week 3 of ceramics here at Catawba College. I'm Professor Shay, and this week we are going to jump into ideation and inspiration. We're going to be exploring the creative process in ceramics and beyond, meaning these are things that you can apply in any of your creative thinking tasks, including your other classes here at Catawba and in your future career. Our learning objectives this week, we're going to be meeting the following 3. We're going to be able to demonstrate and describe multiple construction methods for both hand-built and wheel-thrown forms. This week, we are going to be practicing wheel throwing, centering, and pulling cylinders, which means having a flat base and walls that come up from that flat base. And then we are going to have 2 hand-built methods, one that we're all going to be doing together, which is a double pinched form. The reason we are going to be practicing that is that pinching and rotating motion mimics what we will be doing on the wheel. We are also going to be learning how to build cylinders out of hand building using soft slabs. So whether you are in the hand building group or the wheel throwing group, you will be building a cylinder this week. And so we will be coming up with ideas to inspire our cylinders. This week, we will also demonstrate knowledge and application of various surface decoration techniques because you will have some options to either create additive or subtractive techniques on your surface to create textures and a couple different things. So that we will actually be addressing a little bit more in class than we will be with the video or assignments this week. Third, we will be able to utilize various imaginative and generative thinking theories to plan, research, and create our sculptural and functional forms of pottery. So that's what we will be talking about a lot today in this video is our different ways to come up with ideas. So that ideation process. All right, so as we are planning, we are trying to figure out what we would like to make with our double pinched form, which is going to be taking 2 pinch bats and combining them to create a hollow sphere and then turning them into something else that could be functional or sculptural. And our second thing that we need to plan for this week is what functional piece of pottery are we going to make out of a cylinder that is either hand built or wheel thrown? All right, so let's jump in. What is ideation? This is the creative process of generating and developing and communicating new ideas. So, we talk about having 2 different types of ideation. One is divergent, meaning we might start and we just come up with as many possibilities as we can. And so, looks like a word web or a list or a brainstorm or a brain map where we have multiple ideas written down. Then, after we have created all of the possibilities in our head, we have to begin to narrow down our concept. We can narrow our concept down based on what we know will work with the materials, or we can narrow things down based on just our interest in what we feel like we want to create. And so, as we do the narrowing down process, this is called convergent ideation. We are basically taking all the ideas we came up with and converging them, narrowing them down. If you think of it like a highway with like 6 lanes, and then the lanes begin to disappear and merge into 1 or 2. And so that's where we're going. We're going from divergent, multiple possibilities, to convergent this week. So when we start thinking about what we have done in the past, in class, we created a project where we pressed leaves into a platter. We used the nature and properties of the clay and the materials we were using, like leaves. And we combined that with techniques, with skill and craftsmanship. And we let that drive our idea process, our creative process. Those were the 2 driving forces behind it. Now we are moving towards having a third thing drive our creative process, and that is that we are adding purpose, inspiration, emotion, feelings, and connection, or any of those, to the techniques and skills and craftsmanship that we have, and to the properties of our clay or glaze or materials that we are using. And so it's really important to add this third layer as an artist, because it's what takes us away from maybe the boring projects or the projects that don't speak to us as well. This is what allows us to really have an artistic expression of self along with just making something. So this is like what elevates it to really creating and being creative, compared to just making and regurgitating or trying something. All right. So this week there was a reading that was assigned. It was from a writer on Medium named Minnie Bradeau. This her article was called "The Science Behind Inspiration and How to Design More of It into Your Life." And through this, she had three main areas she wanted us to focus on. And one was she talked about insight and creativity. And this is like everything we breathe in, is how she kind of described it. And as artists, as students in the liberal arts, we are breathing in so many different things. So this is everything from our personal experiences, our surroundings, to like what we're learning in other classes, just kind of like as we're absorbing it all, right? Like we're this big sponge. And so things like nature, like when we're walking outside, like how the weather is making us feel, like noticing trees and things, and just having that, finding that beauty in the natural world. We are also breathing in our own culture, and we're meeting people and we're getting to know their cultures, and so we're drawing from what we know, right? We're experiencing these things. We have our own worldview lens, and so this is part of our insight. And then also part of this insight is noticing the beauty, the details, and art elements. All right. And so that is something that we can be a little more intentional about, but the just noticing patterns and design and the way the light hits something. And then the art elements specifically are color, line, shape, texture, space, and value. So for instance, we might just be looking at an artist's body of work on Instagram or on Pinterest, and we might just notice their really interesting use of line. And maybe we have also noticed line in nature, and we want to somehow recreate that on a piece of pottery. And so noticing those little details kind of is something that we can breathe in and hold space for and hold appreciation. Now, the second area that this author talks about is movement. And she talks about movement as being like what we do with those things that we noticed, right? And so she says, we have this momentum. We have this every day we are already creating things. You guys are already writing papers, you're taking notes, you're making scientific observations, you're doing science labs. And so let's build off of those things. Those are all things we are already doing. We are already creating. So we have this momentum, we have this rhythm to our learning. And so now let's build off of it. So as you're thinking about your insights, right? Your insights are things that are like happening and you're noticing. Our movement is what we are already doing. And so let's look at our personal reflections, whether it's a diary entry or something you said to a friend or your text message. Let's look at the scientific observations you made in lab or outside in the preserve. Let's look at the way that you have intentionally engaged with an organization in the community or with an organization on campus. Like, what new things are you exploring with your friends? What new things are you doing in your community? How are you making a difference? Um, We can look at your journals, your sketches, your writings. It could be a paper, a research paper, a poem. So all of these documentations of thought and creative explorations that you have already done, let's build off of those. So in ceramics, some of the coolest projects I've seen is like people recreating molecules or chemistry formulas in patterns and designs and in integrating them with their art. So kind of think about what is the things that you are already doing, what are you already creating, what are you already studying that really are interesting to you that you could somehow kind of find this crossover in ceramics. Another place to look for inspiration is within yourself. And so at like you guys are already interesting people. So what do you love? What do you know? What do you want to know more of? And so look at those personal interests, things that you like. In the article that you guys read this week, you're going to notice she just said to like list or show 6 things about yourself, that 6 interests or things that you like. And even something as simple as like your favorite beverage, right? Like I think she had a LaCroix can in one of her pictures. And I chuckled because I just saw a ceramic artist who just recreates her favorite canned goods out of a cylinder of clay, to just kind of be like fun and kind of document a point in time and a kind of pop art of our time of the flavor of LaCroix that she likes to drink. And so your personal interests can be your inspiration. Whatever thing in nature or science that brings you awe and wonder, that is inspirational already to you. So use that to fuel your art. Embrace and share your culture. Whatever it is, whether it's people, places, traditions, generational markers, meaning like things that are specific to your generation, or struggles and triumphs that you are experiencing. Those are things that you can speak through your artwork and that have value and that gives you a way to connect with others and to share your culture and your experiences. But lean into those journals, sketches, writings, poems you've already made. Think about the way you've already documented your thoughts and how could you document them further or explore those further through the use of clay. So those were all the 3 different ways to kind of help find inspiration that our author spoke about in the article this week. So if you have not read that already, make sure you do before moving on to the assignments. Something to think about, and aside from these articles, is that part of what we are creating is functional pottery. And functional pottery demands engagement with the user, right? Whoever is experiencing the use of a coffee mug, the use of a vase, you want to consider like that user design or user experience, right? And so these photos document an artist who made this mug, and the first picture you see is actually them dipping it into a layer of glaze. It's actually what ends up being the white glaze. You guys are seeing it looking red until it is fired. When it is permanently fused, it becomes this beautiful white glaze. Well, the reason that the green is shining through is because the artist has already applied that green glaze, that green underglaze. They have added a wax coating and then dipped it in the white glaze, which I know looks red. And then it's going to be fired. And so when it is fired, we have these beautiful leaves with these birds and there's like a handle. And you'll notice there's a couple things I notice about the user engagement with this mug. One is that the handle is a little bit small. It is definitely a mug you would want to hold with 2 hands because it only has space for 2 fingers in that handle. That does not make that's not a bad thing. It's just something I'm noticing. So to me, it's like a mug that you would really embrace and hold with 2 hands. Because it's not very large. And then the second thing that I notice is that the bottom is also engaging the user. So if we're looking at it, we're seeing the sides, the inside, which I didn't include a picture of, it has like a swirl and it's just the white on the inside. And then the bottom, as you lift it, it's also like anyone who's around you is going to see and engage with the design continuation as well as the artist's signature. And so this reminds us to not underestimate the element of surprise. Don't think that just because something's on the bottom of a project that is any less than, or because it's on the inside of a project is any less than what we can include on the outside. So our functional pottery is going to be experienced in multiple ways, right? And so when we think about functional pottery, I think it's very important to consider sensory engagement, right? So our senses, what do we see? And where do we see what we see of the project? And then when we feel, when we engage with the work, so if it's supposed to be picked up a certain way, if it's a mug, if we're picking it up by the handle, what does that handle feel like? What is the texture? Does it somehow help us grip, or does it feel very like a certain way when we feel that texture? And then along with that, like if it's something that we are going to engage with different parts of our body, and what I mean by that is, for instance, a mug, we're going to pick it up with our hand, but then we're going to bring it to our mouth, right? And so when it touches your mouth, is the rim of the mug smooth? Is it something that you would want to take a sip of water or coffee or tea out of? Or is it sharp? And so when we are creating functional pottery, we have to consider everywhere that you would pick up, touch, feel this piece of pottery, right? And then we have this odd little thing because it kind of goes with feel and it kind of goes with see, but we want to make sure that the visual weight, what it looks like it weighs, and the actual weight line up, because we don't want to pick something up and have it be insanely heavy, or pick something up with what we would think would be the right amount of force, but have it be so light that we accidentally almost throw it. So finding this balance of visual versus actual weight is also really important when we talk about functional pottery, right? So I included this bowl, or this picture of this bowl of ramen, because I also want you to consider even the idea of actual weight. When you have this funnel shape, it kind of displays the food in a specific way so that you can see all of the different aspects of the ramen dish. Whereas a round bowl would just kind of like morph all that together. The kind of cone shaped bowl displays it in a different way. Now, kind of joking, but not joking, here, if there's some kind of way that your functional pottery is engaging the user, where sound would be bouncing off of it, or reflecting in some way, hearing could be important. Maybe it's the sound of like the ping, right? Like I'm holding a coffee cup, I know you can't see, but the ping or sound of the handle, or a spoon, if you were stirring it, the way it's going to hit the inside, if it's textured or not textured. Is it easy to wash? That's a big thing on dinnerware or anything that is food is touching, is you don't want to have any kind of texture that is difficult for that would cause food buildup, right? And then as far as smell and taste, we're not obviously going to be eating or touch or tasting the clay or the piece of pottery, but when you include that functional element of food or usage, is there some way or reason that the design could alter the smell or taste, or even hear, like what you're hearing from it? So all fun things to consider when you are talking about functional pottery. And we'll come back to that as we begin to create sets of functional pottery and things like that. But I just wanted to put that out there now as you are beginning to plan and think like this designer that you are, right? We're talking about user experience design. And so we want to consider all of these things. So this week, your job is going to be to plan out two different things. in your discussion post, you are going to come up with what you could create out of a double pinch form. So a double pinch form is 2 pinch pot bowls that we will create by hand. The goal here is going to be to practicing our wedging and feeling like keeping a consistent pressure as we rotate clay, which is going to be what we do on a faster and larger scale on the wheel, right? So once we have 2 pinched forms, 2 bowls, we are going to attach them together to create a hollow sphere. It is up to you what you will turn your hollow sphere into. And you might decide to spend your time working on this week, or you might start it, wrap it up, and then be able to finish it next week or even the week after. So looking at these samples, these are just some random things that students have created out of double pinch forms in the past. On the left, you can see this little portrait kind of cartoon that someone has created. At the top, this is actually a collection. I think there's 1, 2, 3 or 4 double pinch forms there, and then just some other pieces. But these are kind of these nature inspired forms, and they're supposed to represent like seeds of different seed pods of different plants. And then they actually have holes in all of these where they can stack them and create like a garden sculpture that kind of looks like all of these natural elements of things that came out of their garden. Over here, you have this fun Star Wars representation. This is actually a friend that I went to college with, and we did ceramics at the same time together. And he's also an art teacher and professor in Indiana. But that was one of his examples of, you can see 3 double pinched forms here that he's then turned into these Star Wars elements, right? And then pumpkins, super fun way to create a pumpkin. These are sculptural, but it doesn't mean that they can't be cut into the lids and then have like lids removed to become a candy dish or a candle holder. So many options with these. You can also consider, and I guess I should have added this on sensory engagement, is like, how does a light interact? Because you could even carve holes into this sphere and then have a place to add a candle and create a luminary. So these are all ideas, things that we can decide to do with this double pinch form. It could be a functional piece of pottery, like a candy dish, like a candle holder, or it could become a sculptural piece. So that's just some ideas. You this week in your discussion post will get to just like plan out this double pinch form. And you will do that by first coming up with a divergent thinking process. So this could be brainstorming, a word web, any kind of thing that shows multiple ideas. And then you will narrow down your ideas and you will pick one to focus on, and you will be sketching that out and sharing it with us in the discussion post. And then you need to reply to 2 peers. Now, that is going to be your discussion post and discussion response assignment. And then your weekly assignment this week, because we do not have class, it will be to come up with a plan for what you want to do with one of your cylinders. So here are just some samples of cylinders. And I apologize, this one with all the butterflies and the leaves, they're cylinders, but they're more like bowl shaped on the edges, but the bottoms are still flat. So we're going to call them cylinders. But you'll notice, I think, let's see, we have over down in the bottom corner with the clouds and the smiley face, once again, engaging all parts of that mug. Those are hand built. So is the vase above it, with the tree and the birds. And I believe this vase on the far left is also hand built. And then these other pieces, I'm sorry, I took it back. These green ones are hand built, and then these are wheel thrown. So you are going to be creating a cylinder at some point on the wheel, and also at some point by hand with slabs. And so for this week's assignment, you will just pick your plan for one of those. You might create that out of a wheel thrown piece. You might create it out of a hand built piece. It just depends once you start throwing, or if you decide to do the hand building first, like it might just depend, but at some point you will be building the project that you pitch in your assignment this week. Hopefully that helps. The reference this week, the reading that you had assigned was this link on Medium. I did attach the PDF so you don't have to be a member to log in and see that. The article was called The Science Behind Inspiration and How to Design More of It into Your Life. So this week, read this reading, do the discussion post, respond to peers, and then plan out your cylinder idea and turn that in via Blackboard, and you will be good to go. And then I will see you in class the following Monday. I hope you guys have a great week. I look forward to seeing you soon and hearing all of your ideas.